His name is Montgomery Toms, and he is a freedom campaigner. He joins us in the studio. Very good afternoon to you. Montgomery, I was very interested to see over the weekend that you decided to go along to the Pride in London march. I don't know why there's another Pride in London march. I thought Pride was last month, but apparently it does go on all year. Sadiq Khan was tweeting about it. Doesn't allow replies, of course. But you decided to offer what you called a counter perspective. Tell us what you did.
So ultimately I went to the Pride March, and I went there with a sandwich board which stated...
A big billboard, yeah.
Yeah, and it stated, you know, there's the trans flag, which is significant, equals mental illness. Now, once upon a time, to be identifying as another gender was actually categorised as a mental illness. That's since been changed, but that was kind of World Health Organization.
It is still treated as a mental health problem. I mean, that's why children who believe that they are born in the wrong body are being sent to psychologists. It is body dysphoria. Mm-hmm. It is a form. So, for instance, someone who thinks that I should have a third leg or only be born with one leg, 100%. And there are people who think that they are diagnosed with a mental health illness, body dysphoria. And one could argue that someone who believes that, well, I should have been born, I'm a man, but I should have been born with a woman's body, or a woman who thinks I should have been born with a man's body, doesn't match my brain. It is a form of body dysphoria.
Absolutely. But I think the principle around this is less about what the sign says, but more that I should have the ability to say that. Now,
this is it. You were not harassing people who were joining the Pride March. Mm-hmm. You were just simply standing.
So I arrived. I was there for about half an hour. I interacted with a couple of people, pretty amicable. Obviously,
your choice, or did they approach you?
They approached me, and then an officer came over and demanded that I remove the sign. Now,
the sign. I want to clarify that lots of people fly the Pride flag. Now, it used to be the rainbow flag, and then it became the very complicated one that pushes trans ideology and Black Lives Matter and everything else, and it's the very big, the one with the black and the brown arrows.
This is with the pink.
This is the pink turquoise, or pink, pale blue and white flag. This is specifically the one representing trans. Now, I think one thing you and I both share is that I believe that trans is an ideology. I don't believe it's a real thing. Someone is gay or not gay.
Yeah,
but
no, absolutely,
people who you either are or you are not sexually attracted to people of the same sex or the opposite sex. Whereas someone who believes that they are born in the wrong body, well, I think it's a simple matter of fact. They are not born in the wrong body. No one is born in the wrong body. Your body is your body. If you identify and want to live as if you are the opposite gender, fill your boots, but you're not the opposite gender. We've recently had that established by the Supreme Court. So. Biological sex is a reality. It is based on the actual what a woman is, what a man is. You wanted to make your statement. Were you trying to harass people? Were you trying to anger people? Were you trying to provoke people?
Well, that's what the police asked me, of course. And on principle, I just think that we should have, even on kind of a grassroots level, a reaction to something which I don't believe to be true, and also very harmful towards children specifically. There's loads of kids there, which shocks me. They're being this is being promoted to them, this woke ideology that it's acceptable.
It's in schools on a day-to-day basis.
It's beyond in schools. It's just insane what they are doing. But when the police demanded for me to take it off, I refused, and I did that on the principle is I have freedom of speech and I have the right to demonstrate. And a lot
of this is on video.
Yeah.
In the end, extraordinarily, watching the videos and reposted them at the weekend, 11 police officers.
Well, it's worse than that because I actually walked away. So the initial officer that came to speak to me told me to take it off. I then refused, but I was sensitive to the fact that I didn't want to be overly antagonistic and end up in a jail cell, so I decided to walk away, and all of a sudden I was 2 streets away from the demonstration, and 9 cops arrived, plus 2 more a bit later. I was handcuffed.
They followed you?
Essentially, and came
so their
the
issue was presumably that you were making this statement on the sandwich board.
They thought my words were harmful.
But you'd walked away from the Pride March.
I'd walked away, and then they followed me, and then they handcuffed me. And their reason for doing that is, well, they don't really have a proper reason.
You were asking, you were stating repeatedly that you had the right to exercise your freedom of speech.
And they think it's public.
Very calmly, by the way, very calmly.
Well, it's important that we do, and they think it's public disorder, etc. But define that. I mean, clarify that to me in detail. How is what I've done going to harm anybody? And it seems to me, and they obviously didn't want to say this, that they're less concerned about me and more concerned about the individuals reacting to what I have to say. And I make the point really clear. Since when did we govern our country on emotion? We're supposed to govern on law.
Well, weirdly, it's very similar to, say, groups organising with anti-Hamas posters at the supposedly pro-Palestinian marches we've had for the last a year and a half every fortnight in London, that they've been told that, no, you're provoking, you could provoke disorder because someone in the march might not agree with what you have to say, when actually the problem should, if someone is provoked by seeing a placard or a sign, they are the problem, not the person holding the sign. But you kept pointing out to the police, and they were very quiet. They were barely speaking, weren't they? Clearly just, we've been told to come and arrest you. You're the problem at this point. That you had a legal right. Now, not just the Supreme Court, but Maya Forstater, her case at the Supreme Court about the right to people, it is a protected, absurdly protected as a belief, even though it's reality. It's a belief, a protected belief that you can believe that, trans women are not women, etc. But do you think that some people might say, who agree with you and are concerned about trans ideology, that holding a sign up or wearing a sign that says trans equals mental illness, some people could say that is provocative and that is offensive? What would you say to that?
Yeah, well, obviously I was asked that, and that was the motivation for the arrest. I mean, look, my response to that was, if the shoe was on the other foot, they wouldn't treat them the same way. And that's
if you said, I'm offended by someone saying, trans is real, children should be
and to which a lot of us have been attacked, maybe not physically, but verbally and emotionally for a long time now, just for saying that there's two genders. Yet, obviously we don't get protected in any sense, and we're supposed to put up with that. So this is subjective policing. You can't, as I say, you can't police based off words and offending people. That's utterly ridiculous. We're seeing this constant attack of free speech online, Lucy Connolly, all of these things. So my response to that would be, we have to maintain the right to use words freely, because it's a very slippery slope. I would say we're already almost down the end of that slope of the complete attack and removal of freedom of speech, freedom of expression. It's mental. It's against our constitution. It's against law,
fundamental principles. Well, look, you eventually ended up with 11 police officers surrounding you. You were standing, it's all on video, standing very, very calm and still, not being abusive, not just saying, I've got a right to do this. What happened then?
Well, once I was arrested, I was taken to Charing Cross police station, and I was held. I mean, in total, from the arrest to the end I was there, the whole process was about 10 to 11 hours by the time I'd sort of got out of the situation. But I was in a cell for about 9 to 10 hours. And in that process, obviously, I was interviewed and so forth. The interview was very interesting.
I was going to say, what did they ask you?
It was quite fun. I mean, honestly,
Were you scared at any point?
No, because I know I'm more scared of having a country where we can't have this.
Losing the ability to do this is more scary. Okay, so what did they ask you?
I was asked in the interview, about my intent, which is the most important thing, and they were very fascinated, and this will bring me on to my next kind of crucial point about what I do for work. They were quite focused on this, and I tried to explain, well, I do kind of a lot of campaigning and so forth. I'm very pro-free speech. And once they identified that a lot of my work revolves around Westminster, I have now been released on a pre-charge, but with bail condition to say I'm banned from the city of Westminster. I cannot enter. And if
you can't do your job,
can't do my job, essentially. So this is going to be challenged, and I assume
what was the actual charge?
So I've not. It's called a pre-charge. So
they haven't told you?
No.
Did you kept asking presumably, why am I here?
So they've not been able to clarify.
What crime do you think I've committed?
Public disorder was
But you weren't committed. I mean, you were standing quietly by the side of the street.
I know. I don't know what to tell you.
But we have this, haven't we? We've had, a Christian campaigner outside not even outside, but near an abortion clinic, praying silently in her head, who's been arrested again and again. And yet, it's exactly thought crime. And yet, again and again, we see people marauding around central London, intimidating people, say these pro-Palestinian marches. A lot of people, again, may disagree with some of the ideology that is on display at the Pride March. Again, love a bit of pride, absolutely, fill your boots. But I've never understood why trans has got anything to do with gay, but an awful lot of gay and lesbian and bisexual people absolutely don't want to have anything to do with that.
That was the significance of it being a trans flag. And interestingly, the police wanted to confuse that and accuse me of obviously going for the whole shebang of LGB, but I wasn't.
But again, I would still defend your right, even though I would disagree with you, I would defend your right to have those views about gay people.
Totally agree. And
in the same way a gay person could have that view about me as a straight person.
Yeah, but it's just, I'm using it as an example of how the police hijack and have a political agenda to enforce, though it still lives within the Met Police, even after the court hearing. It's
well, it
the
lives in the government. Look, Parliament hasn't even dealt with all of this. Did you suspect that the motivation was one individual zealot police officer who started it all? Did you get the impression that they'd been ordered, like there'd been like a load of people on the radio going, get that guy over there? What was your impression of what you thought was going on?
Well, ultimately, I had this initial conversation with an officer who told me I had to remove the sign, and once I told him I'm not going to be doing that, you know, I knew that was going to escalate, and he would have been in contact with his superior. So there's somebody out there who essentially gave the order to send in 9 officers plus a few more to come and arrest me, to which they'll be cringing right now, because that video alone of the initial arrest has got over 1 million views. Yep. I've got huge backing in terms of fighting this, and we're going to win. I mean, this is absolutely
well, if you
ludicrous.
don't, then this country truly is lost.
Yeah.
But it is absolutely fascinating. Your views, when you work with the Together Declaration campaign, about Alan Miller's big friend of the show, fan of his. I've spoken at their events previously. You're part of your motivation is you're a Christian, but that's not, you're not working with a Christian group. But either way, it is fascinating when we have seen demonstrations, often sometimes quite intimidating demonstrations, by people of other minority faiths. We don't see any action, even though people are being physically intimidated, whether it's outside a school, Batley Grammar School, whether it's outside cinemas about a film that someone doesn't like, whether we've seen the extraordinary situation of a man now, criminalised for burning a Quran. You know, it does seem that some religions get a free pass, and Christianity definitely doesn't.
No, and I actually
in a Christian country.
I made that clear. I think in somewhere there's lots of footage out there. You'll be able to find it where I turn around and say, you know, you don't like Christians, do you? But what if I was Muslim? You know, how would you react?
Well, they'll probably think that's a hate crime too. But it's a legitimate question.
It is.
You've got lawyers. Yep. You're going to be able to fight this. I know as soon as you came to the studio, Sam Armstrong, you did a lot of work with the Free Speech Union. You campaign on these issues. What action is open to Montgomery to take now against the police?
Well, Montgomery's case follows, I think, a pattern, which is this abuse of public order legislation. We've seen it used to clamp down on a man who burnt the Quran. We've seen it in a number of other cases. Now, the offence that Montgomery was arrested for says what the sign he was displaying had to have been threatening or abusive. Plainly, it wasn't. Yeah. So, I mean, potentially,
I think most people would regard it as a statement of fact.
Potentially, it's open to him to sue for wrongful arrest, for the bail conditions are plainly excessive, and I very much doubt that the CPS will charge Montgomery in this case, and he'll have the recourse
if
to come back.
If they've got any sense. But what about the fact that he was detained for 10 hours?
Well, indeed, wrongful imprisonment. But this is the issue. The person that picks up the bill when Montgomery's rights are avowed, he avows himself as his rights and sues the police, as I hope he does, are the taxpayer.
Yep.
No individual officer will be disciplined. No individual officer will be sacked. The senior officer, presumably who signed this off, will not be removed from office immediately, as well they should be. And we have seen this time and time again. We saw the case of a gentleman down in Kent, a former special constable, for posts on social media. Yep. Officers came to his house, said, "Oh, you've got Douglas Murray books on your shelves."
Bit Brexity.
Bit Brexity. What happened to those officers? Absolutely nothing. They're still going out. They're still enforcing the laws, and they do so very, very badly, in part because police officers in this country are not trained on freedom of speech. They're given days and days of training on diversity, almost none on freedom of speech. And what we see is that we, the taxpayer, are actually the ones that are getting left on the hook.
Yeah, and again, and this is the key thing, isn't it, Montgomery? Because people, again and again, I think he makes such a good point there, that these things keep on happening. And yes, there may well be, after a lengthy period of time, you know, Alison Pearson at the Telegraph or other people, they win their case or they don't get charged, and then you've got a case, you've got a civil suit, and absolutely people must pursue those to make that message. But nothing seems to change. Mm-hmm. What do you want to change?
I want this case, but not just my case, all the cases to be kind of brought to public attention, into the mainstream. You'll see if the BBC does something like that. I highly doubt it. But ultimately, we need to be pushing back on all levels, like a scattergun approach. We need to be doing this on a grassroots level, much like I did yesterday, of saying I want to put a different opinion forward and soaking up the consequences, because you will have consequences. But ultimately, what choice do we have? We have to fight for freedom of speech in this country. If we lose the right to speak freely and lose the right to have debate, then that's it. It's over. It's 1984 in 2025. And this is what we're seeing rapidly. So we need to be pushing back on all levels, whether that be contacting your MP, whether it be on the ground kind of grassroots work, whether that's talking to your neighbour. This needs to be a conversation we're relentlessly having, because we need debate, we need freedom of speech, and we need to push back on this political agenda to take away our freedom, strip us of, honestly, democracy, because that's what democracy is supposed to thrive on.
People don't seem to know, it is the bedrock, it is the foundation stone. If you don't have freedom of speech, you can't criticise and you can't question, especially an ideology that's sprung up out of nowhere. And is dominating, and I totally agree with you in terms of the damage to our children from this ideology. And indeed, so does this government and the last government, because we had that review into the Tavistock clinic, and they decided, to close down those routes because...
I said that to the police.
Exactly because of this. So it's official government policy. But it's interesting, some people are saying, look, oh, well, the NHS treats this as a mental health issue as opposed to a mental illness. I think most of us regard those things as the same thing.
You really are clutching at straws there, aren't you, if you start to use that as a reason to arrest somebody based on the use of words.
Yeah, but again, even if someone's offended by it, so what?
Absolutely agree.
Turn away.
Absolutely agree. It's just pushing that point and reiterating the fact that we need freedom of speech and we need debate in this country. It's not even a complicated point we're making.
You know what? I wish your case was sort of a complete one-off and everyone was talking about it, but it's not a one-off. It's happening all the time. All credit to you for putting your principles and your values on the line. More young people like this, please, she said, like she was a 70-year-old judge. But this is true. We need more of this, more people standing up. Any help I can give you, any help I know Free Speech Union can give you, I'm very sure will be there. And keep us posted. Come back again and let us know what's happened. Montgomery Times Freedom Campaign. Now, that is exactly what you are. We don't have to agree or disagree with what he did or what is said on the placard. It's a question of whether you're allowed to exercise your views. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. 03